All right. Welcome back. Welcome to the CAG Access Summer Institute. My name is John Goodwin, and I serve as president-elect for the California Association for the Gifted.
Good morning. My name is Jan Ravelis, and I serve as an at-large representative for the California Association for the Gifted.
We invite you to use the chat during the session to ask questions or to add to the conversation. We invite you to engage in this interactive presentation.
Join CAG by becoming a member today as an individual or a school site. Sign up at cagifted.org by clicking on membership. This session will last from 11 to 11:50 a.m. The next session will begin at 1 p.m. using the same link you used to log into this session. After this session, you will be able to enjoy lunch from 12 to 1 and return for the next session at 1 o'clock. Tag us at CA Gifted on Instagram, X, or Facebook. We would love to see you on social media.
All right. I am excited to introduce you to our speaker, Krista Landgraf. Krista Landgraf is the current president for the California Association for the Gifted and Legislation Advocacy Committee chair. She has served on the CAG board for over 15 years. She's an adjunct UCR Extension GATE certification program instructor and a sixth grade GATE teacher. She's a GATE consultant and has presented both nationally and internationally. She also serves as a master teacher for CAG. She has earned Teacher of the Year from the California State Assembly, the Johns Hopkins Sarah D. Barter Lifetime Fellowship Award from the Center for Talented Youth, and the California Association for the Gifted Distinguished Service Award. Welcome, Krista Landgraf.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my screen, hopefully. Oh, just going to share. Maybe. Desktop. No. Okay. Let me try this again. Okay. Everything closed because I have this up. I'm going to find my other one. How's that?
Looks good.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move it just a little bit, I think. Yeah, can you tell this is not my normal day job? Okay, so exploring novelty. That's what we're going to be talking about here. And I'm trying to figure out if I can open this as a slideshow. Nope. Okay. So we're talking about novelty as one of the standards for teaching gifted students in the state of California. We have acceleration, depth, novelty, and complexity. Most of us, I think, specialize in the areas of depth and complexity and acceleration. And I don't know how often we actually branch into the area of novelty, which personally, novelty is my favorite area to get students into. So just a kind of an overview more specifically of what these things look like. Dr. Kaplan mentioned it today, going into depth, going into complexity, acceleration. These are just some of the strategies that can be utilized. But novelty to me, which is where I want my students to be, is that critical thinking, the logic, the problem solving, the creative thinking skills. If we're just teaching from our publishers, district adopted texts, we're never going to really hit this area. So we've really got to make a conscious effort to serve our students in the areas of novelty. And just as a definition, novelty in general, it's the introduction of divergent, creative, unique, unusual characteristics. So it's really getting students to look at content in a different way, in a different, applying different meaning to it. So areas of novelty that I'm going to look at particularly are critical thinking, problem solving, creative thinking, and logical reasoning. All of those go hand in hand, I think, in order to think critically, right? And we are great at educators. And I see I'm cutting off my slide here. I don't know if that helped or not. Okay, we're great at educators of just telling students to think about something. Go think about what you think about this, but we never bothered to explain what that means. It's the same thing as when we tell kids, go study, but we never tell them exactly what that looks like, what that means to study. We need to let kids know how the brain thinks. We need to let them know about the terms metacognition, divergent, convergent, inductive, deductive, logical reasoning. All those things need to be part of their wheelhouse and their understanding of how they go about learning. As Common Core teachers, the 21st century, we were told for years, we have to concentrate on those 4 C's: critical thinking, creative thinking, communicating, and collaborating. But how effectively are we really doing that and achieving those skills? So critical thinking, in essence, is just it's a careful analysis to better understand something. So to teach kids the ability to break something apart, to really understand what the subject matter is. In order to do that, you need to be able to analyze, evaluate, and synthesize. Where have I heard those words before? A little bit of depth of knowledge and Bloom's, right? But again, I can only state this so many times. If you're only teaching from a textbook lives in levels 1 and 2 of depth of knowledge. You're never going to get to that evaluative, that synthesis, that analysis stage unless you go beyond. Teaching critical thinking also includes you need to have students have an understanding of what logical reasoning is. Teaching creativity and teaching independent thinking, because this is where we want our students to be. All the conversations that we've had so far today have been focusing on that. So where do you begin? Really, you need to start by providing an understanding of how the brain works and let kids know why that's important. Um, Provide constant opportunities for open-ended inquiry questions throughout the day and encourage self-reflection. All of this needs to be done continually all the time through all subject areas. It's very imperative that we provide these opportunities for these students. So I always start the year off with open-ended questioning, opening up the fact that this classroom is going to be based on inquiry. I want kids to be able to analyze, evaluate, and justify. So we discussed that early on in the year of what that looks like and what that's going to play out in the course of our year. So this is an inquiry circle map kind of thing that I found, and I like it because it's really for academic language for an elementary campus. This is what they're doing. You're wondering, I wonder about something. Gee, that wondering may lead me to an investigation. Maybe I'm going to find out some information and write it down. All along the way, I may find something different. I think this, I'm going to try, I reflect. A lot of this inquiry too is what I want my kids to do in a research project, right? So the ideas of what this inquiry model is something that I think we need to instill in our children. If you're teaching upper level kids and you don't need it quite as basic as I wonder, this is an inquiry model map. But it was pointed out to a friend of mine that I got the map from something online, but the numbers are wrong on it because it goes from inquisition, it should be acquisition, but that's labeled as number 6, but whatever. The idea is there. It's a different academic language that we're teaching. And this kind of goes along with the idea of the basis for 5E, instructional model if you're teaching that way, but it's just an inquiry based, what you want your kids to start doing in a classroom. So if I'm starting the year off with open-ended questions, some examples you can start in. NGSS is great about this because they already supply a lot of that. But instead of just telling students at the beginning of the year or the beginning of subject matter, this is what we're going to study, period. Start with a question, have them ponder before we even get into it. What do you think causes the roots of plants to grow downward and the stem to grow upward? This is a great opportunity for them to interact. It's also a great opportunity, very informal, for you to be able to differentiate in your classroom. Who are the kids that already know these answers? Who are the kids that know it and know way beyond, right? Who are the kids that have no clue? So it's a great way for you as a teacher to direct your instruction. It's also a good way for the kids to buy into the subject matter. What do you think makes weather change? Right? Start that, have a conversation, then go on into the actual science lessons that you're going to be teaching. Give kids an opportunity to think about things first, to evaluate what they already know, to justify their reasoning, and then move on. This is just some examples from my classroom, and I think it was after a reading activity. Now that you've read it, what did you think of the author? What do you think the intended audience was going to be? What reactions do you have? These are all questions that are not going to be yes, no. They have to think, they have to analyze what they've done. And in this instance, the kids love to do chart paper for anything. So I had them chart their answers, partner up and chart their answers. And then we did a gallery walk around the room. So think about now, within your current lessons, where can you automatically shift and have your students ponder answers rather than just tell them? Where can you provide authentic problems and allow students to formulate their own conclusions? Again, you're wanting opportunities where they can analyze, evaluate, and justify. Think about what you're already doing. How can you tweak what you're doing to allow for this? These are some slides that are just things that I do in my classroom. I do a lot of stuff with Pear Deck because I love the fact that Pear Deck gives the opportunity for student response. So I don't know about you, but my idea of think, pair, share, and maybe just because I was that kind of kid, think, pair, share. Teacher tells me to think. I'm thinking about what's for lunch, what are we doing at recess today? I'm not thinking about the topic. Pairing with somebody else, we're just chit-chatting and hope the teacher doesn't call on us, right? So this, I force them, they have to write the response before they do anything. So I just throw out an idea. What does it mean? Learning how to learn. I'm telling you to learn. What does that mean to you? What do you wonder about it? What do you already know? Write it down. Okay. Weekly ponderings are great. And we've talked about that before. Dr. Kaplan talked about the idea of giving more opportunity for students to actually ponder things. Um, Ian Bird does puzzlements, I think, but I love this is an opportunity, and I would do it every Wednesday morning because that was my minimum day. And it's short, it can be 10, 15 minutes, it can go longer depending on how kids are engaged, how you want to work it. But it's really just the joy of being able to ask questions and not feel like whatever your answer is going to be evaluated. It's just questions for the question's sake. And I'm going to try to open this real fast if I can and just show you what I'm talking about. But I can't reach it. Let me move it up. So this is what it looks like. It's the same every week. It's ponderings. What do you wonder? What do you know? And I spend an inordinate amount of time on Google Images because it's fascinating to me. You can find the most bizarre things on Google Images. So I just throw stuff out like this, and we talk about what do you wonder? What do you know? What makes you say that? What makes you think that? And then again, so I go through it, stuff like this. Sometimes there's videos. Sometimes it's just the images that I have, but it's just the idea. It's just the joy of questioning and giving kids credence that it's okay to do that, to ponder about things. Um, Another one I do is a question focus ideas. This one is not based on content necessarily. It's the beginning of the year when I'm talking about these concepts. Curiosity is divergent. What are they doing? I'm not going to take the time to open this other one because I think I have some other slides that show it. So the basic thing is I show you a picture. You ask as many questions as you can. You're going to write this down. You write as many questions as you can. Don't stop to question what you're doing. Just write. Spontaneous writing. Once you're done with that, look through it. Make sure that the questions are actually questions. Put any punctuation in there. If they're closed questions, throw them out or rewrite them to be an open question. Right. And then this was when I did content. Sixth grade does early man. So it was showing this picture. And then again, I'm still not telling them anything. I'm leaving them open questions. Which questions that you wrote provided the most information? And how is that important to know that? Again, the onus is back on them thinking and them figuring things out. And how does understanding questions translate to the idea of power? So again, tying what I'm doing into the universal concepts. Back to the beginning of the year, this is like the first week of school. This is what I ask them. What is thinking? Give me your response. How do we think? Give me your response. Why does it matter? And again, this is not, there's no right or wrong. This is just them answering and asking questions. Then I'll go through and say that really we have three different types of thinking that we're going to look at. We have divergent thinking, convergent thinking, and metacognitive thinking. I've done this with fifth through eighth grade, teaching these concepts. Obviously, if I'm doing them in primary grades, I would still say the same academic language, but explain it in more detail. Just talk about, we have a creative thinking, we have that logical thinking, and we have that thinking that we want to reflect back on what we know. So this is a great visual, and I found this a few years ago from somebody else, but I think it's a great visual for showing divergent thinkers versus convergent thinking and teaching the kids that we need both parts of our brain. And we even have discussions on which are you more like. I tend to be very divergent thinking, which is kind of hard for those people that are very linear thought to keep up with me, but that's okay. because we cross bridges together. So this is my explanation to students. What does divergent thinking mean? I go through, explain it because it's an abstract thought. I want to make sure that I give them opportunities to really digest what this is. So I have them think about it for a minute in your own words, explain to your neighbor what it means. I do an activity that I learned from Orange County Department of Ed, and I don't know what it's called, but it's two parallel lines of students. One is group A, one's group B. Group A can be explaining divergent thinking. They move to the next person, repeat it over and over down the length of the line. By the time they're done, everybody's got divergent thinking ingrained in their brain that way. It's just a great physical activity that helps take these abstract ideas and put them into the long-term storage. So again, what is convergent thinking? It's the opposite. And this is what we do in school mainly. This is what you see in classrooms. This is what the teacher's going to ask you. They're going to ask you specific multiple choice questions. You're going to figure them out, which makes sense, which doesn't make sense based on what you know, right? It's the opposite of that creative thinking process. What I want is more of that creative, that divergent thinking brought into the classroom. And I want kids to understand the importance that they have to have that divergent brain in order to continue on that convergent path. So starting with introducing with a big idea. Again, pondering. Creativity begins with the following rules. So I would start off with, what does a statement mean? Is it true? And then go on to explain that creativity is that abstract thinking. And rules are very specific. So how do you tie that in together? What makes sense to you on that? So again, this is high level. This is the beginning of the school year. I'm doing these to these children, those lucky dears. I'm really forcing them to think. And then go on, why do these two terms relate to the idea of divergent and convergent thinking? We've been talking about that's two different kinds of thinking. Now I'm asking you to make a connection and how that relates to those two things. And then why do these terms relate to the idea of metacognition? Again, applying our brain thinks in these three different ways, making them understand that we're going to be utilizing all three parts of this brain throughout the school year. Metacognition is really important because that's your understanding of why. So types of thinking, I go on from this, I need to go into logical reasoning. So I teach a lesson on logic. Oh, and I don't know about you guys, but during COVID, I fell in love with the Bitmojis and I tended to spew them all over. And my kids finally said, enough, lady, stop. But whatever, they're on the presentations. So I start out with, again, what does logic mean? So understanding, and again, this is some high abstract thinking that I'm asking of these 10, 11, 12-year-olds. So going through, I ask them, what do they know about it to begin with, and what do they think? And then I supply them with this definition. This is a basic definition of what it is. If you've got more advanced, older students, then I would go ahead and give them the actual logic is. It's formal and informal logic. There's valued arguments going into that. Depends on your age level of how involved you want to get in the definition. But we introduced the Likert scale. First of all, I just throw out, have you ever heard of this? Do you have any idea what it is? Do you wonder? Then I go in and show it to them and they're like, oh, I know what this is. I've seen this before. And so then we'll go through and do lessons on what are things that you strongly agree with, what would strongly disagree, why is that? What is more logical in an answer, what is not logical in an answer? So from then I go into a lesson on deductive thinking and what inductive thinking is. So again, these are just a section of a slide out of an entire lesson, but just to understand at the beginning of the year, this is how I'm starting my year off. Inductive is moving from those details to the big idea. Inductive is Sherlock Holmes, and I'll bring in Sherlock Holmes into this case because it's like he summarized scene, oh, you've got a stain on your tie, your shoes are dusty, you're da, da, da. You must be, and go from there, that inductive thinking. But all this ties back into the idea of metacognition. It's just that fancy word for knowing what you know, and you need to be able to know what you know in order to really learn and to think. So again, explaining to the students what this is. From there, I mean, I talk really fast, but I got a lot of slides to cover, so sorry. I go into talking about problem solving. So I've spent a week doing nothing but teaching thinking strategies, what those things look like. Now I'm going to go into problem solving activities. And I love the fact that Dessa brought up Scamper, which I have later in here, because it's staggering to me to know that at age 10 and 11 and 12, these kids are not, can't come up with any ideas. They have two or three things and think they're great, which is not what you want in problem solving. This is where you need that divergent brain to think of different activities. So yeah, in order to problem solve, you have to think creatively. You have to be able to think outside the box. Applying ideas to Scamper to problem solving is huge, and that's one of the reasons it was intended. But I teach kids, or I just tell kids, if you're only thinking convergently, and you've got this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then this, and this something is a roadblock, nothing happens. If you cannot think beyond that, if you cannot think divergently and think, oh, here's my problem, here's a possible solution, or it could be this solution, or it could be this solution, or it could do that solution, you're never going to solve that problem. Same way, if you're like me and you're that divergent thinking and you got idea, nothing's going to get done unless I get on that literal path. So teaching the kids to know when to use both and how important it is to be able to be a creative thinker. John Spencer is a phenomenal teacher, educator, promoter of thinking critically. He was I believe he was a middle school teacher for a while. He's now a professor. He does a lot of writing. He does a lot of stuff online. You can just look up John Spencer and a lot of things pops up. But he does a thing that I do at the beginning of the year, and it's a divergent activity. And it's basically a super simple thing. There's a little video that goes with it, but it's you give the kids straws, paper clips, rubber bands, marbles, and tell them they have to create something practical to use with it. But before you even get started on that, you have to start off with, you need to brainstorm ideas. And that's where it amazes me when kids can't brainstorm. They think of like three things and think they're good. This is where the idea of Scamper becomes such a crucial need for students, giving them the opportunities. Yes, you can think creatively. Yes, you can think divergently, and helping to focus their brain on how to operate that way. And again, I won't go to a lot of this because Dessa did a phenomenal job on explaining what all this is, but just to reiterate the fact that it's very important in helping kids to be creative. The idea that creativity is something that you just have or have not is not true. It is a learned trait. These are strategies to learn creativity, and I highly encourage you all to incorporate them in your classroom. This is just an example from the beginning of the year, first time I did it, and I think the kids were doing glasses. And I particularly like this one because I do have bifocals, but even with bifocals, I would like the ability to zoom in to magnify at will and zoom back out again. So just ideas that the kids came up with. Provide opportunities. This was the beginning of the year, the activity that I talked about using the straw and the paper clips. They had to come up with different ideas before they could even begin anything. And I had them partnered in groups of 2 or 3, and they would come up to me. We thought of 3 things. I'm like, 3? Go back and think about 3,000 things, to sending them back because this was a difficult process at the beginning. They couldn't think of a lot of different ideas. This is an idea, just teaching them, this is a pretty straightforward problem. What problem do you see here? What's happening? It's easy to answer, right? Then go on and say, those thinking prompts we have, those can be utilized as tools to opening understanding to what problems really are, and understanding what would be the implication of not opening that jar. What would motivate somebody to do that? And what's the impact? So allowing for opportunities to tie in problem solving with deeper levels of thinking. This is activity I did as 5th grade teacher, and I am sorry, I can't think of, I got rid of the book. I gave it to somebody, I never got it back. But it was a book, and it was from a long time ago. I think it was from the 70s or 80s. But it was an activity that was set up. It was science. They were doing science experiments, but it was based upon a thing of a crime. A crime had taken place. These are the people involved in the crime. Here are the footprints. Here are the things. They had to prove who committed the crime based on evidence that they went around and solved when they were doing the science experiments. It was very open-ended. It was open to the kids, what they came up with, what the conclusions they did. And they were very frustrated at the end when they said, am I right? Is this right? And I said, I don't know. Did you prove without a reason to doubt that this person did it? Because there's no right or wrong. You have to just prove it, which threw them for a loop. This is an activity I started incorporating. It's been around for a long time. I've known about it and haven't done it in my class until recently. Designed in the 90s, late 90s, somebody with more time on his hands decided that he was concerned with the online platform and kids getting into websites and thinking they're legitimate without really having any basis for a legitimate website. So he decided to create this very involved website stating the endangerment of the Pacific Northwest tree octopus. Went through and did all the stuff, had all these things, statements of, I testify that this is true and all these links to everything. And he presented it to a group of high school students, and the majority of the high school students believed it to be true, which was scary because not thinking critically, right? So provide opportunities. Colin Seal is phenomenal. We had him at CAG a few years ago. He's written a program, or he's done a program called Thinking Like a Lawyer, and there's a whole all kinds of information about that. You can contact him directly. I suggest buying the book. He does a lot of things on Teachers Pay Teachers that are free, but it's the idea of having students think like a lawyer has to think. So you have to look at things from multiple perspectives. You have to base only on the facts. You can't go off from this, and you have to support with evidence. So from that, I started teaching law in my class, and I started putting things on trial. And there was a thing I found on website was put SpongeBob on trial, and some other ideas. This was the idea of putting Jack and the Beanstalk on trial. Is it good to be bad? Can you justify that? Giving kids an opportunities to think like lawyers, and lawyers go through a process of discovery, which I also teach the debate club. And so debate is when you're debating, you're looking at the evidence that you have, right? Is it going to be in favor of your side or not the other side? So you need to weigh the information. Same thing with what lawyers do. They take witness statements. They may get, 40 different pieces of information. They have to look at that evidence, decide which is going to validate their perspective, which is going to be beneficial to them, which is not. Know the difference of the two, be able to counterbalance if somebody brings up the point that you don't want, that kind of thing. So weighing it. So this is huge. This is really forcing kids to analyze, evaluate, and synthesize information on their own. I do it one way I did it was in four corners in a room. Here's the evidence. If you're in favor of it, go stand there. If you're against it, go stand here. If it's irrelevant to your case one way or the other, if it could go either way, force them. Again, this is the onus is on the student thinking. I'm not telling, they're thinking. They have to rationalize. When they get to whatever corner with all the people in favor, they have to have conversation. Why are you here? What is it? Why are you justifying this? At that point, you see kids move around and goes, oh, maybe I don't want to be here. The one for goes either way is great because you got to validate information. This evidence could be in my favor or be against it. Deep thinking for the kids, but it's all on them. What I'm trying to communicate here is letting kids have the opportunity to explore their learning, not just telling them. Tay Bowie is a great educator, brilliant mind. He's over at Ontario Montclair. He does a lot of things, very open-ended questions in his classroom. So this was an activity I based off of what he does. And I start, what do you wonder? What do you know? How can you find out? Using those parts of your brain. You've got to be divergent here. You've got to be convergent, and you've got to understand what it is you're doing. This was the question. How many pounds of fruit will your family consume in the next 2 years? Sixth grade standards, I applied it to sixth grade standards. This is something that they did. I gave them 2 weeks to do it, and it was done on their own. It was not done in class. They had to determine what it was. So they had to make a plan. What are you going to gather? What kind of questions you're going to ask and answer? Which questions are absolutely essential? Which questions are going to make your answer original? So these are things that they had to tie up in and do. And this, I purposely put this because this student was not an identified student in my classroom. She was not one of my higher students in the classroom. But she blew me away in what she was able to do in this opportunity. Giving kids opportunities for like this is where you really get that spillover effect. You really get kids that you might not know can crave this kind of thing. So this is what she put together. These are the questions, why she thought they were important. She went through, not only did it in pounds, but she converted everything to grams so she could measure it that way. To me, that was a phenomenal example of giving kids an opportunity. It's a real life problem to solve. I'm not telling them how to set it up. I'm just giving them guidelines. It's all up to them, and how they wanted to present it is their choice as well. So moving from the more individualized problem solving into doing it collaboratively in a group setting, making sure that there is active engagement, making sure that there's communication and analysis and evaluation. And again, I think it's because I must have been a terrible student, but in collaborative group work, especially if a grade was factored in on that, I'm like, I don't trust you. I want my A. I'm doing it all myself, which was my mentality, not the best in a classroom situation. But giving them group work. So this was something I love. We did the giver all the time in my class because I love it. And I found the idea, well, actually the idea of a food truck was something Tay was doing in his classroom, but I found this thing online. I tweak it because I'll find stuff, but I always extend and enrich and enhance whatever I find online, right? Make it my own. So this was an idea. I put them in groups of 2 or 4. They had to create a food truck as a culmination product for the book that we'd been reading. And they had 2 choices. They were either going to create it around a character truck or just the theme of the story. And I can remember one group of kids doing this, and it was COVID. So we just come back in the classroom. So we're behind plexiglass, right? I'm not bringing in food. You're not actually doing a food truck. So it was just, I had drawn a outline of a food truck. They traced it on tag board, and then they went from themselves. And this one group of boys, and they were goofy boys. They were really bright boys, but they were more lazy than they were energetic in activities, to say the least. And I'm going along, and the week's going on, and there's really not a lot on their paper, and there's no color. And I'm like, you are paying attention to what you have to do. You are paying attention to, oh yeah, 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 we know what we're doing. And I was thinking, oh no, you do not. And blew me away when they actually did the presentation. Their whole product was black and white. They had white rice, white bread, milk, and I'm like, they did it on a character. In the very beginning of the story of The Giver, if you've read it, there is no color, there is no just anything. So that's what they did their whole thing on, which was awesome. And it made me eat crow because they were doing exactly what I asked them to do. I just didn't realize it. Another one I found, this is great. In 6th grade, we have to teach cells. So getting kids to internalize, yeah, you're doing this activity, it's one thing, but now I'm going to have it's a zombie apocalypse. The whole world is dead except for a few group of people. We are the few group of people. You need to create a safe environment for who's left. You need to supply food source, all the things that we need, but you're going to do it in the confines of a plant cell. So based on a knowledge of a plant cell, where are you going to take those things and apply them to us living in this civilization, and how can we sustain ourselves? So they were given big sheets of butcher paper, which they love. They had to draw a big scale. There was 4 of them. They had to come together and do it, all different specifics. It was great. You really had to interact. And again, it was up to them beyond the description of it's a zombie apocalypse. We are people inhabiting, and it's inhabiting in this plant cell. And how are you going to make that plant cell people friendly? That was it. They had to come up with it on their own. Other things that I've been a part of and I've seen is when you revamp wasted space on your campus. I went to a school site in Orange County that had done this. It was phenomenal. They spent way more time than the teacher had thought they would, but they ended up going to their school board requesting this. They contacted Home Depot, got loans from Home Depot. They came out and helped. They went to their school principal and fought for all this stuff. So they did all this, ended up designing and creating and building a space that was usable in their school. Anytime you provide open-ended activities is great. 5th grade teacher, I was doing earthquakes, and I had a parent build me an earthquake simulator with a PCP pipe and a board and big rubber magnets that I could shake it. And I gave the kids the assignment was, you're going to create the tallest earthquake-proof building that you can with whatever evidence, whatever things that you can come up with. The main thing on it has to be the tallest structure, and nothing can be interlocking, which was a major discussion back on, is tape interlocking? Yes, that's interlocking, yes, because basically everything interlocks, right? So they had to create the tallest one, and whatever group did won. And it was great to see, because again, creative, open-ended, I'm not supplying anything. They come up with it. They have to do their own research. It was a great activity, and it was something that I did year in, year out, and it was always a favorite in my class. But another way you can tweak things And I've done a presentation on this before, but I think it's really important. And again, I think it's because I was such a terrible group partner in school, that how can you take that group, you know, you 5 people are going to go together. So and so is going to be the leader. So and so is going to be the secretary. Somebody's going to collect the information. In my mind, as a kid, as a student, okay, all I have to do is collect the information. I don't have to do anything else. I check out. I'm done. I did my part, right? So, and I know not all kids are as bad as I am, but I do know there's a lot of me out there in my classroom. So how can I tweak this up and make this different? So instead of doing the regular group work, this is what we came up with. And it was based on an idea from Dr. Kaplan, and I flew with it as to how I saw it in my classroom. Again, the idea of I get ideas from somebody else, but I'm going to enhance it and enrich it based on my needs and my interests, which is exactly what I want my kids to be doing in their learning process. So subject matter, ancient Greece, teach 6th grade. Instead of just going through, we're going to do a report on ancient Greece, you're going to do whatever, you're going to work in this group. No, and we've talked in my class about disciplines, different kind of disciplines. So this is focused on the idea of who's fascinated with the leaders behind civilizations, who follows leaders, right? Who are those kinds of people? Does that interest you in particular? Maybe you're more interested in just group behaviors in general. You're more of that sociologist, that psychologist, kind of wanting to find out who these people are, why they think the way they do. That's interesting to me. Or maybe I'm more into the cultural, the social aspect, the education. What was their education like? What was their social? Did they have Facebook? Did they have anything like that? That kind of thing. Maybe that's my interest. That's where I find fascinating. Or maybe you just want to see who just hangs out in the crowd and just watches and just is there. Who are the police? Who are the law enforcers? Who are the people that just encourage that society to go on? Who's that cheerleader just cheering people on? If you have an interest in one of those particular areas, that's what you're going to be in this session, this group. So the person that wants to learn about the leaders and followers is that person studying ancient Greece. The person that wants the sociology. So each individual comes with 4 different perspectives on the same topic. It's circling around that topic with different understanding. When they come back and they come together, and perhaps it's something that they just do, I'm going to write a paragraph on the leaders. You're going to write a paragraph about the cheerleaders. You're going to write a paragraph about the social, whatever. You put it together and it becomes a paper. When you're reading, when you're editing that, you're going to start realizing, oh my gosh, I was only looking for the leaders. I didn't even know, I didn't even see what the perspectives of the whole group is. That's fascinating to me. So it gives that extra level of depth. And it's also, to me, a more exciting way to do group work than just what we normally do. Um, so again, providing opportunities to ensure that you're giving critical thinking opportunities, you're providing problem solving, not problem solving that I found on Teachers Pay Teachers and it says step 1, step 2, step 3. It's not problem solving that the textbook tells me have the students do this first, next do this. It's got to be open-ended. We've got to get away from scaffolding everything where we put the onus on the student themselves. Dr. Kaplan's whole conversation this morning about having them take ownership. If you're bored, you don't know how to think on your own, to reason on your own. Giving them opportunities to work in the safe confines of your classroom where you can help guide, but help them to understand that they are the critical thinkers. They are the problem solvers. They are the creative thinkers. And they're applying logic to all of that, not just in school, but as Dessa points out, this is what they do out on the playground. This is what they do at home. This is what they do interacting with their games and with their friends, tying all that into the fact that, oh, yeah, this is how my brain operates. I operate both divergently and convergently, and I can understand metacognitively why that's important to me and what that makes a difference on my learning. Giving kids opportunities from day 1 to the end of the school year is paramount. If you're only doing things like this once or twice a month, it's not going to cut it. You have to provide those open-ended activities all day, every day in the classroom. I'm notorious for never answering kids' questions. Well, I do answer, but if they ask me, is this right? I'm like, I don't know. Is it right? Well, is it right? You tell me, you wrote it. if you wrote it, you thought it was right, right? So put it back on them and not automatically just saying, oh, no, you're wrong. In math class, kids would get irritated with me until they finally figured it out. The only time I have a poker face, and it only lasts so long, is I'll ask, so and so, what was your answer? Oh, great. What was your answer? And they look at each other going, wait, she just answered the question. Why is she calling me? And I go around the room and I never say whether it's right or wrong. And when I'm finished and we've got different answers, I'm like, okay, well, how many people think they know the right answer? And why do you think it's right? Can you validate your own? Again, the onus is back on them to be that critical thinker, that problem solver, not me telling them what's right or wrong. I think that's hugely important. So you need to think in your classroom, just start asking. I'm not asking you to reinvent, to change everything. Just start asking, where can you supply? Tell me more, instead of just giving a cutoff yes or no. Tell me more. How did you think that? Can you clarify that answer for me? Please provide evidence. Can you support what you're saying? Um, Tell me how you came to that conclusion. Helping them justify and use that metacognition. How did you come to that conclusion? Self-reflection. I came to that conclusion. How did I do that? Oh, yeah, I went through these steps. This is what happened. This is helping them understand that that's all thought of how we think and the process that's involved. Giving opportunities for students. It's not asking you to create something brand new. It's just tweak the way you're already doing what you're doing, tweak how you're asking and interacting with the kids. And this is my shout out for primary teachers, because I'm not a primary teacher uh, by choice. Primary scares me. But kudos to all of you that teach primary students. I could not. I did for a couple weeks, and upper grade is my jam. So for primary teachers, really, the idea of play is critical thinking. Play is problem solving. Play is creative thinking, giving opportunities. How do you think kids learn how to interact? Give them a set of blocks. Don't tell them anything. Just let them go at it. You watch them. They'll figure out by trial and error. Oh, I tried putting the block in here, but it fell over. Maybe I should do something on the bottom. It's simple things like that that we need kids to interact with. We used to do that all the time in kindergarten, and now it's not part of the curriculum. It's not part of the standard, but it's essential if we want thinking individuals. They have to have these opportunities to really think about it themselves, doing puzzles, doing anything like that. This is something that Dr. Kaplan does not want me to do, but I'm sorry, I'm doing it anyway. She came out with a book a couple years ago based on work that she was doing with Project Change, and I bought it. Like I said, I'm not a primary teacher, but it is awesome stuff. It has things in there if you're a primary, and it's not trying to do anything other than give opportunities for children to think. It's really cultivating that curiosity that kids come to naturally. Those 3, 4-year-olds that follow you around at home, that question why all the time. We have a great habit of taking them and squashing that in our education system the way it is today. By the time they get to my 6th grade class, they don't even know how to ask questions, right? So what happened? We want to make sure to encourage curiosity is good, giving opportunities for kids to play and interact and reason how that works together is extremely vital and necessary in the world today. Um, like I said, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. I'm not asking you to do that. We've got enough on our plates as classroom teachers. I just want you to think about what you're hearing this whole weekend or these 3 days about what I'm already doing in my classroom and how can I adjust? How can I extend? How can I modify? How can I enhance what I'm already doing with some of these ideas? Um, my main big thing is do not provide those step-by-step instructions. You're going to have kids in your class that may need that extra scaffolding, but don't wait till they come to you and you figure it out. Don't just automatically assume. Give them the open-ended things. When you're giving them open-ended activities, you can see who might need that extra scaffolding, who might need a little help with it step by step, who doesn't, right? But give them the opportunities. This is powerful. And you're going to discover it. This way of teaching is powerful and it's wonderful and it's exciting. You want to allow these opportunities for all students, not just your gate kids. I'm talking about everybody. In my class, I've always taught cluster kids. I've always taught everybody with gifted strategies just because it's good teaching, right? Um, again, just rephrasing the fact to think critically, you've got to analyze. You've got to analyze facts, evidence, observation, arguments in order to form a judgment. Think about this. This is what we want our kids to do all the time, every day. I did a thing a while back, just in class. Okay, here's critical thinking. What do you think of it? It ended up, and I didn't get the final picture of it, which I should have, but I was so excited that my whole entire class said all the prompts. You can't think critically unless you go through and use this academic language to really, the academic language that the prompts represent is really critical thinking. And you have to have all those. Into the lesson, I was all goosebumps. I was like, oh, it works. So critical thinking is essential for all your students. All. Can't emphasize that enough. They need to analyze, evaluate, work with problems, give them problem solvings that are practical, that they care about. When you focus on the GATE standard of novelty, which all this area lies into novelty, which really to me is my exciting, because this is where you get kids to think for themselves, to want to learn more because they're so excited about whatever it is. This is, if I could wave a magic wand, all of you would be teaching novelty. All of your students would be in this environment and thriving and reaching the possibilities that they could reach. So this helping students navigate through this ensures that students truly learn how to learn. It's a win for all kids. And this is why I do what I do, is I want to ensure a world where students learn to question, to analyze, to evaluate, and to reason logically. So on that, I will stop yakking away and thank you all. Yeah, so I'm going to stop sharing. And I haven't looked at the chat box or anything during this whole time, so I don't know if we have questions. The slide decks are not necessarily going to be linked to anything. You get at the end of the, I think it's like 3 weeks time, you'll be sent an email and you'll get all these sessions, the recorded sessions. So you get video recordings of everything. If you want anything personally, I'm always just email me. I'm more than happy to share. Sharing is caring, and sharing is why we do what we do, to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to do this. And like I said, I spend my education career tweaking everything that I found. So if I didn't find stuff, I couldn't tweak anything. So if people didn't share, you can't tweak. So yada, yada, yada. But I love how Julie commented that this is a perfect segue for where she's going um, uh, into the UDL lessons too. Same kind of idea. So,
All right. So if there's no
Well,
more questions, go ahead,
okay.
John.
oh no, if there aren't any more questions, I'm going to let Jana close us out.
All right. Thank you for attending this webinar session featuring Krista Landgraf. Thank you, Krista. Amazing as always. Your certificate of participation will be emailed to you 1 week after the last day of the event. The next session will begin at 1 o'clock using the same link you used to log into this session. You can learn more about our events by following us on Facebook, X, or Instagram by searching for @CA Gifted.
All right. Have a
Time for
great lunch
lunch.
break.